One of my favourite things about Bleach Brave Souls is the way it's been able to consistently expand the scope of the franchise, even beyond that of the canon manga and anime filler content that we already know and love. And the best way it's done that has been through its own original content, its own brand new designs that are unique to the game, and yet have still push the boundaries of what we know from the franchise. Obviously, the most famous being the Can't For Your Own World Beyond Resurrection Espada, which essentially gave many of our favourite characters a brand new transformation, the majority of which all looked really good. We also got the Ichigo kind of Quincy amalgamation of all of his powers form that we got for New Year one year. And now, with the 5th anniversary, we have two brand new versions of Ichigo and Byakuya, which appear to be riffs on their versions of the Soul Society final battle. But there's definitely something weird going on here with both of these characters, and I want to take an in-depth look at the anniversary trailer and the artwork we've had so far, and see if we can't glean some information or secrets from their designs, and kind of just work out what these guys are supposed to be. Before we get started, however, guys, we are so close to 10,000 subscribers, which is absolutely insane. I don't know how we got here. I'm pretty sure it was like a month ago I did the 1,000 subs video, but if you haven't subscribed yet, you're in the perfect place for weekly Bleach content, so hit that button now, like the video for the exposure, and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the weekly Bleach videos coming up in the future. So, about these two new anniversary forms then, I have to say my immediate impression is that I really like them both. I think they're elegantly designed and they look in keeping with the Bleach aesthetic. Ichigo in particular could have had the chance to look really bad, but I think they've done him justice and it does look like a potential Ichigo form. More so than the Quincy one we got previously. I think that one felt less like something Ichigo would actually look like to me. I don't know whether it was just the actual trouser legs as opposed to Shihakusho, but it really threw me off a bit. This Ichigo, however, looks exactly like I could imagine a transformation in the manga. Byakuya, on the other hand, the actual differences between this and the canon version appear to be a little more understated, but I have to say this form looks really, really cool, and I love the way it encompasses his past designs as well, which again is something we'll get into, but regardless, I'm actually really happy with this because I went into this anniversary thinking that we were basically just going to get Ichigo from the Soul Society final battle and Byakuya from that battle, maybe using Shuke Haku Teken, but the fact they've gone another step further and given us some brand new content again really makes me excited. So let's dive deeper into what we know, the very little we know, and see if we can't work out what these guys are supposed to be. So, if we start with Ichigo's transformation then, and we look at what we've got here, let's take a look at what the most obvious points of interest are first of all. Ichigo's long black hair is very clearly evocative, if not completely ripped straight from his Mugetsu transformation, his final Getsuga Tensho mode. The most powerful I think Ichigo has ever been in one single instance. So that actually is pretty interesting. Has he achieved that level of power here again? I don't know. We've never seen Ichigo with dark hair before like this, other than that mode. So it would definitely imply there is some kind of final Getsuga Tensho incorporated into this power. However, some of the other changes that come with that mode, for instance, the face wrappings he has, the wrappings around his chest and arm, they don't appear to be here anymore. Plus his eyes in this new form are his usual brown as opposed to the red that they go in the final Getsuga Tensho. So whether he's only wielding a part of that power now or if it's more just a case of it's merged with many other different things, it's currently unclear, but I think the hair is definitely a reference to the final Getsuga Tensho. Another obvious reference point, in my opinion, is his ripped but tasseled Bankai coat. The three tassels coming out behind him seems to me to be a pretty obvious reference to his lost agent Bankai that he gains against Ginjo. Basically looks almost identical, apart from this version is maybe slightly more shredded up, but that really looks to be the lost agent variant of his Bankai. What's more striking here, however, is the application of what appears to be Fullbring. Ichigo is definitely wearing what's supposed to look like his completed Fullbring armor over his body. It's going down his hips like it does in his final form, it's on his shoulders. There's nothing on his face in this form, which is quite interesting because obviously the Fullbring version in the manga goes over his nose. In this, there's nothing, but this is definitely supposed to be reminiscent of Ichigo's Fullbring. So could this be the completed version of his Fullbring merged with his Shinigami powers? Because obviously we never got to see that because Ginjo stole his Fullbring, or the majority of his Fullbring, at the end of the Lost Agent arc. So It could be that, but I'm leaning towards something slightly different. Now, this next one is probably the biggest stretch I have for you, but don't his shoes kind of remind you of the Quincy Vandenrijk's military boots with the steel toe caps? Really looks similar to that to me, but I'm not entirely sure there's any Quincy in this transformation whatsoever. I just thought that was worth pointing out. They look really similar. The weirder part for me, however, is what looks like some kind of reference to Ichigo's true Shikai form. I know that obviously he does appear to be wearing the full-bring armour, but he does seem to have that same ex-bodyguard armour going across his chest, linking up to the shoulder pads, much like he does in the final arc. And what's even more telling is the fact that he has what looks to be some kind of tattered cloak or something coming out across his waist behind him, much in the same way as he wears that kind of unique version of a captain's Hayori on his bottom half in the true Shikai form in the final arc. What's weird about this little miniature cloak thing in this form, however, is it doesn't look like anything Ichigo has ever really worn before. It kind of reminds me of Ginjo's own leather jacket with the furry collar, but aside from that, it's really hard to say where this has come from. One thing I think is definitely worth pointing out is you can see in his special animation, he seems to gain a pair of like red Reiatsu wings. My immediate impression was these look very similar to the wings that Ginjo gets in his Bankai form, again emphasizing the full-bring aspect of this transformation. And when Ichigo activates whatever power he's using here, the Ban symbol that is so associated with Zangetsu appears beneath his feet, and again looks very similar to how it appears when it rushes out of his badge during the Lost Agent arc. Whatever this form is, it's really got very heavy ties to the Lost Agent arc, which I definitely was not expecting, but I really like. I think this form looks really cool, and the special doesn't give an awful lot away. It's really hard to see what his sword actually looks like in this form. The tiny glimpse we can really see from the artwork, it kind of almost looks like a lance, but again, it's really hard to tell. But he jumps upwards in some kind of powerful swing attack, but there's really not an awful lot more we can glean from that. Upon closer inspection of the trailer, the front guard that he is wearing is absolutely connected to the shoulder guards like it is in the Thousand Year Blood War arc. So I'm wondering if this is supposed to be an amalgamation of every single one of Ichigo's forms from the moment he uses the final Getsuga Tensho. It's really weird to say. It doesn't appear like he's transcended, as he isn't fused with whatever Zanpakuto he's holding. You can see that in the animation. He's literally just carrying it like a normal sword. If I had to guess at what this form is, it's definitely some kind of fusion. But I'm almost wondering if this is the final Getsuga Tensho, but after Ichigo has regained his powers, because obviously we never saw that form again. So I'm wondering if this is the final Getsuga Tensho, but if Ichigo were to use it in the Shinigami form he has in the Lost Agent arc. So, you know, when he has the X across his chest, he's got the collar thing going on, he's got the new Zanpakuto, he's got the, again, like I said, the tasseled Bankai, which this looks to be exactly like that. I wonder if this is the essentially final Getsuga Tensho version of that Ichigo. I don't know, it's really hard to say, but I'm wondering personally that that might be that. One thing that's a little bit strange about this form of Ichigo's, however, is that they are clearly emphasising the Ichigo versus Byakuya fight, but in my opinion this form barely seems to have anything to do with that fight whatsoever. All of the aspects, the components of this form, as you were, seem to be made up from way beyond that fight. It all seems to be centred around the Lost Agent arc and maybe slightly into the Thousand Year Blood War arc as well, and then obviously the Aizen fight. Nothing to do with Byakuya whatsoever, so that's kind of weird, but at the same time, Ichigo looks really, really cool in this form, and I'll definitely be trying to summon for him. Moving on to Byakuya, however, and like I said, this version is slightly more understated. There is obvious change still, but it does look like the Shukei Hakuteken version of the character that we all know. There is something very interesting about this form, however, that I want to get into, and it may also apply to the Ichigo transformation as well. So let's dive into this. Again, the obvious comparisons with Byakuya's new form are the Shukei Hakuteken wings he has going on. That's clearly what this is supposed to look like, but there's definitely more to it than that. The Reiatsu of Shukei Hakuteken that now surrounds him almost takes the form of like a coat now. He's got like almost a huge collar going on. He is wearing his Reiatsu like a cloak in this form, which I don't think he was quite doing before in the Soul Society arc, and to lend more credence to that is the fact that the Reiatsu of the Shukai Hakuteken this time has actually formed the tassels across his chest that are obviously very reminiscent of the noble attire he wore when he adopted Rukia into the Kuchiki household. So again, this form seems to be taking an amalgamation of every Byakuya we've ever seen into account here, because this also appears to be the time skip version of Byakuya. He has shorter hair, he's not wearing the Kensei can in his hair anymore. This definitely looks like, again, Lost Agent Byakuya. So that's really interesting. It appears to be some kind of amalgamation of every Byakuya we've seen up until this point. Byakuya's quote during his special is, "I will show you the full extent of my power," and we also get to see him summoning white swords. Again, that's not something he did in Shukai Hakuteken before. That appears to be reminiscent of Senkei. So again, I'm really wondering if this is again some kind of fusion of all of Byakuya's current Bankai abilities. In fact, both Ichigo and Byakuya mention directly that this is their power on show in both of their specials, which will feed into the theory I have a little bit later on. Another small point of interest is that both Byakuya's hands and feet are inverted in colour. He now has black socks and white sandals, very similar to almost like how Narankar's shoes look. I'm not saying Byakuya has any hollow powers in this because I don't think he does. It's just an interesting thing to note. And his gloves appear to be white, as he actually has like black hands but with the white gloves going on. Again, it's a really weird inversion on the character. I don't know what it actually means, if anything really, but it's a neat design change all the same. Now, obviously, their animations are essentially designed to be played side by side. Ichigo swoops upwards with a black strike, Byakuya swoops downwards with a white one. They both have cyclical kind of themes to them. Ichigo creates almost like a black moon behind him when he does his strike. When Byakuya flies forwards, he creates a white circle. They're clearly supposed to be played together, despite the fact that, like I said before, I don't think Ichigo's transformation really has anything to do with that fight. The most interesting thing here to me, however, is that I think Byakuya's certainly is some kind of true Bankai variation on Senbon Zakura Kageyoshi. I wonder if this version of Byakuya is essentially his final Getsuga Tensho. Now, a long time ago, I did some drawings for certain Bleach captains where I imagined their Jinzen form. Now, obviously in Bleach, Jinzen is just the tranquil, almost like trance-like state a Shinigami enters to talk to their Zanpakuto, but I called it that because that's the form that's the mode Ichigo had to enter to get Final Getsuga Tensho. So I kind of imagined Komamura's Final Getsuga Tensho, Soifon's, etc., etc. And I'm kind of wondering if that's like coming true now. Is this Byakuya supposed to be the Final Getsuga Tensho version of his move? Because the way he kind of brings all of his white Reiatsu around his arm to create a sword with which he does one powerful strike, it's very reminiscent of that. And again, I think this version of Ichigo could be the Final Getsuga Tensho, but just after the time skip. And honestly, if that's what we're getting, that's actually really cool, because I think it could pave the way for future Brave Souls content. One thing that's really important to remember is that Beyond Resurrection, Ulquiorra was originally just an anniversary unit. We didn't necessarily know it was going to pave the way for all of the Espada. If it turns out that Ichigo and Byakuya, or even just Byakuya, are some true Bankai variations on themselves, are we going to get all the other captains moving forwards? Because that would be incredible. Like, you can just imagine some version of Komamura where it's him inside the armor, and it's like billowing Reiatsu, or Soifon gaining some kind of yellow Reiatsu running all the way up her arm with like butterfly wings behind her. I can absolutely see that sort of thing. I think that could be where K-Lab is heading, and I definitely think this could be a tease for that. So I think it's something really to look out for and to be really excited about. Either way, that's basically all we have on these guys. I think Byakuya certainly has got to be some kind of true Bankai Final Getsuga Tensho version of his normal self. I think it would just be perfectly fitting that he's like cloaked in his own Reiatsu. It shows off the nobility side of him with the tassels on the front here. The cyclical looking powers that, is very evocative of Ichigo's final moments as a Shinigami in the Arankar arc. Ichigo's is a little harder to place because obviously we've already had that of him. But I do think maybe it's him after he's had the Fullbring arc, after he's fused with his powers. But it does also look evocative of the final arc version of Ichigo's Shikai. So Really hard to say Ichigo in particular, but I'm going to say for now that I think Ichigo is the final Getsuga Tensho version of him, but after the Lost Agent arc, you know, when he's already got his powers back and he's the new version of Ichigo, maybe even true Shikai Ichigo thrown in there as well, and then Byakuya is true Bankai and could even be a precursor to seeing the rest of the captains like that. But that's it for this video, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think these characters are, and are you going to be summoning for them? Because I think they're really exciting, but bear in mind, round 2 of the anniversary could be Sternritters again, so I really don't know what to do. I've managed to save up a few orbs, so I'll probably do some summons on this, because these characters look really cool, but as always, it'll probably be filler depending. That's it for this video, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think of these guys. But until next time, I shall catch you later. See you then.